Here's the agenda for today. We are going to start with a little bit of housekeeping, letting you know how we will be organizing this. Then I will start with the big picture update or the context update. You know that the summer has been actually pretty fluid when it comes to COVID-19 in the States with the surge and the governor's framework, etc. We're going to guide you through the decision-making process at the school. And I will present to you what are the most likely scenarios for the back to school day. So what's happening for your student for back to school. And then we will go into specific academic plans, giving you more details. You will have many more details next week and the week after that, when you will have also town halls with the division heads. They will be sharing more practical information as far as back to school day, onboarding week, what is the pedagogical material that's needed, what's going to be the digital ecosystem, what are the schedules going to be looking like, etc. So a lot of practical, very useful information for you. I'll try to stay high level and give you a very comprehensive overview of the fall for the school. And then we'll have opportunities for questions, of course. So the housekeeping, the focus of this town hall is really looking at the return to school update and the updates of our return to school plans and giving you practical back to school information. So that's the main of the information that I will be sharing today. We'll have a moderated Q&A. In order to ask a question, you want to go into the private chat. And so you can ask your questions there. Cecile, who's with us today, will be monitoring the private chat, will be collating all the questions revolving around the same topic, and she will ask the questions at the end. So we'll have a good chunk of time for that. And if there are, by any chance, outstanding questions, you can ask them directly to any of members of the team. We have many members of the leadership team here today with us. The division heads are here, Richard, Sébastien, Magali are here. Other members of the leadership team, we're all happy to take your questions. Or you can go to this email address as well that you could see on your screen, covidsafety@ev.org, for any questions related to COVID matters or COVID issues that and things that you would like to know. Again, there will be other town halls very soon. Okay. So the context update, maybe to start with, what I would like to do first is for us to look back a little bit at the situation that we've all going through in the spring. So COVID started around December. At the end of November, December, we started talking about the situation at the school in January, and then we went into distance learning. As you know, the school closed mid-March, and May 28th, we shared the return to school plans. So the plans are pretty much very relevant still, and almost everything that we've shared with you in the spring is still very relevant. But looking back, I want to recognize that this has been a pretty difficult journey for everyone, us faculty and staff, for you parents, for all of us as a community. I mean, we're clearly talking about a challenge, a situation that has changed drastically. Our lives have been turned upside down, and I think this shouldn't be overlooked or minimized. This is pretty significant. And this is a slide that I've taken and adapted slightly from Dr. Bardak. You can see she's here at the bottom. Dr. Bardak works for UCSF. She's an associate professor of pediatrics and policy. She has a lot of information when it comes to COVID-19. She's studying the relationship of children and COVID, and then the impact of COVID on schools, etc. So she identified these 4 steps within the COVID journey for schools, and I think it's very relevant for us. So I wanted to share that with you to recognize where we're at and what we've learned and where we could go from this. The first information and the first step was that we thought, or the community thought, that children are the viral vectors of COVID. A little bit like the flu, so to speak. And so the school closed to flatten the curve, as we say. The second step was to recognize that, oh, this is lasting longer than expected, and it's clear that the school need to reopen. First of all, other countries have succeeded in reopening schools. And then we've learned more about the disease, and we've learned that children actually do not transmit as much as adults, do not get as ill. And then we started studying the impact of the school closures on students, and we've seen massive widening of disparities, and then the toll that the closure of schools is taking on students and also adults, as a matter of fact. The step number 3 was to realize that reopening schools would be difficult. I mean, this is hard. It costs a lot of money. It costs a lot of resources. You need to do things the right way. And you need to have best practices to understand how to do it safely and partner with community members, teachers, parents, public health authorities, etc. So this is where we are at. We have this body of knowledge right now. We have this body of evidence. We don't know everything, but we know a good bunch about how to reopen schools safely. But then the step number 4, and this is pretty much where we left it off together as a community in the spring, in May. And then step 4 happened. This is the surge. So what we've seen is that cases go up in the US, starting mid-June and in July, really going out of control in some areas in the US, and California going up as well. And we've learned other things. We've learned that the community prevalence actually drives the cases in school and camps, no matter what age. And that's a very important factor. We've also seen schools reopening or camps reopening, doing not what they're supposed to do. So we have seen examples of what not to do. And we have learned that the virus is actually airborne. So it's not only in droplets, but it's inborn in when we breathe, etc. Thus the importance of masking even more than before and being outside as much as possible. All of that to say that it has been a little bit of an emotional roller coaster, and I want to recognize that. I want to put that out there because I think we're all here. We've worked a lot, and we have to recognize that as a community we've pulled through, but we need to push further, and we need to stick together and recognize and help one another to recognize that this is not an easy situation for our students or ourselves. I have hope though, and I'll share some hopeful news with you today. Here's what we know though about a little bit about the COVID-19, and here's a summary of findings also taken from Dr. Bardak. First, children get COVID-19 less often and are less ill than adults. It seems counterintuitive. We're seeing a lot of articles at the moment about studies showing results that could be a little bit in contradiction with this, but I think the studies that show that are still very solid, and the other ones can be questioned to some degree. Number 2, children do not seem to be a major source of transmission to each other and adults. Number 3, transmission in elementary schools likely differs from high schools. That's why you have this waiver thing for elementary schools in California. Number 4, we know how to reopen schools safely. So we have a clear body of best practice here that we're drawing from the multi-layered approach. I will go into many details in a minute about that. And we've seen also how not to do it. In Georgia, in Texas, in Israel, we see people not having masks, mixing cohorts, having big groups, being crammed always, etc., not having proper ventilation, and so forth. Number 5, community prevalence really drives what happens in schools. So that's a very important one. And so I will be using this one and the one before to show what we need to do as a community. So that's a very important takeaway from us. There's one thing, I know some of you are aware of this tool. It's a very nice tool taken from the New York Times. And what it's showing is that if we will go back to school today in any given county in the US, how many infected people, students and adults, will arrive at school actually today in those particular schools. So you will see counties here at the bottom, the bottom left side, where there is a lot of prevalence, where you could see in a school of 1,000, 38 people will be infected, and then it goes down with the size of the school, school of 500, school of 100, and then pods of 10. So that's an interesting thing, because this is what we're using. We're using the stable grouping, the stable cohorts with the bubble cohort and the stable cohorts. We can call them pods. So we have pods of 10, 12, and 10. So that's really our guiding principle here. And you could see Alameda County here. I've done that yesterday, so it's pretty recent. Alameda County, pods of 10, 0 cases. Also school of 100, 0 cases. So an important one, but I think it takes away home the argument that the prevalence in the community is one of the main factors to control. And thus, I want to undermine right off the bat that we will have together a social contract. This will be those community expectations when we come back on campus. Preschool is coming back on campus right now. Most likely, the rest of the school, except the kindergarten, is not coming back on campus right now. But when everyone's coming back, depending on the divisions, we need to go by this social contract. I've shared it with you already. It's recognizing that we have a shared responsibility that we all bear to mitigate the risk in our community. Risk mitigation is a responsibility of all of us. We are all responsible for our own personal behaviors. All community members are responsible, students, staff, families. We must adhere to these personal behaviors outside of schools, and we know the best practices, right? Face covering, physical distancing, hand washing, etc. Limited travel, sticking to your groups, designated groups. We've talked about social bubbles, we've talked about academic bubbles. So those are very important things that will be in our community expectations. So all of that will put together community expectations, and then the pandemic response plan, or the return to school plan, is now called the COVID-19 safety plan. It's composed of protocols, policies, and also community expectations. We'll put all that into an addendum to our students and parents handbook. And so this will be shared with you next week via DocuSign, and will need to be signed before the first day of school. So I really want to make this clear. It will be sent by DocuSign, so please look out for this email, and it will need to be acknowledged by yourself and signed before the first day of school. Okay, so where do we go from there? This was a big picture update. I want to share with you the most likely scenarios for back to school day. We will have most likely, we're talking about 99% of chances here, a phased in approach or hybrid approach. So remember the prerequisite for a school reopening. Yeah, there you go. The double framework. First of all, I've shared with you that there was some news shared by the governor of California mid-July. So the governor of California updated two frameworks. The first framework, the one that you have on the left of the screen, is the K12 Schools Framework from the California Department of Public Health. And the other one is the framework for childcare programs and providers. As its name states, this one is a framework for schools, so elementary schools starting in K, then middle school, then high schools. This one is for childcare programs. Our preschool is actually operating under a childcare program license. So our preschool goes under this guidance framework. The rest of the school goes under this guidance or framework. So that's two frameworks that are actually mandating how we respond to the situation in California and in the Alameda County. Now, what does the K-12 schools guidance says? It says that schools must do distance learning if any of the following apply: the county is on the monitoring list, or the county has been off the list for less than 14 days consecutively. So that I've shared that with you. Right now, the thing that we need to know is that Alameda County is on the monitoring list, of the state's monitoring list, since July 12. So we cannot do on-site learning for K-12 students. The state has a little bit of an issue with data collection. So no country is really going on or off the list. But the countdown for the 14 consecutive days to be off the list starts Monday. So by Monday, we should be knowing if technically we can be off the list. Again, most likely this is not going to happen. Now, the guidance also says that we could have a waiver of this criteria, and we could ask we could request this waiver to the local public health authorities. Now, the Alameda County has said very clearly to all of us that as long as the county is posing its reopening, and the reopening of the county is on pause since June 29th, they will not be granting any waivers. So again, that's why I'm saying that most likely our elementary school students, our middle school students will be distance learning in at least the month of September. So back to school day will be distance learning for elementary and middle school, and at least for the first 4 weeks of school, so the month of September. Now you could see here that we have K, and K is usually under this guidance will be under schools. Now K is also, we have a license for the childcare for up to kindergarten students, so children up to 6 years. So our kindergarten students could go under this childcare program guidance. We've asked the county specifically for that. So we're trying to see if we could have the kindergarten students on campus. One thing that is sure is that the childcare programs can reopen or transition from emergency childcare for essential workers to regular operations. So the preschool can be on site. Most likely the kindergarten students can also be on site. We might have a little bit of a space constraint, so that's why we're probably having a hybrid model for kindergarten. We were looking into two additional things, a childcare program potentially for essential workers, particularly thinking of healthcare workers. We have talked about that in the spring. Right now we need a waiver for that, and the county said to us that they're not accepting any waiver also for this. We were also looking at the childcare for EB's employees' children. And again, we need a waiver, and the county has said no to those two requests. So I wanted to show you this slide again, because this is the one we have been using in the spring to explain what will be the decision-making process. That's the decision tree. So we've said that if we have all the prerequisites to execute the physical campus modification, the physical distancing, mitigation strategies, then we will go into phase 2. So we are able to do all this, and I'm going to share a little bit about that. And the phase 2 for us was to look at what the public health authorities will say. Here you have Alameda County, but it's also the same for the state. So the state is telling us two things. It's a yes for preschool, and it's a no for elementary and middle school. What that means is that then for elementary and middle, most likely we're going distance, and for preschool, we're going on campus. Remember that you still have this option of having the home learning. So the most probable scenarios for the fall, and I'm going into really the takeaway for all of you here. Ecole Bilingue will be for the maternelle, on campus for all preschool, TPS, toute petite section, PS, de petite section, MS, de moyenne section. And kindergarten, we're looking into a hybrid model. So some days at the school, some days at home. We're trying to have the kindergarten students at school as much as possible. And then 1st to 8th grade students, almost pretty sure starting with distance learning. Final determination will be made this Monday as we announced it, but you can at this point count on having elementary and middle school students being at home for at least the month of September. Just the rationale for keeping the preschool open. First of all, it's authorized by the guidance. And second of all, I wanted to share, you've got a list of reasons here, but I wanted to share the 3 main reasons really. We've seen the impact on young children of the shelter in place, and it has a deleterious effect on their development. Second of all, we want to recognize the hardship of working parents who are in need of care. And third of all, I think it's also informed by the science, and we see that young children are the least likely population to transmit COVID-19 at the moment. And that's reflected in the guidance and also the waiver process and the recommendation from the American Academy of Pediatrics. The waiver update, I've shared that with you. At this point, Alameda County Department of Public Health is not accepting any waiver to open elementary schools, which will be K to 6th grade. They're not accepting that. When they resume, maybe this possibility of accepting waiver, we're thinking of still applying to give us the possibility of having the choice or reopening in person, at least for specific grade levels or not, and have the conversation with the community, but at this moment, this is a roadblock anyway. Okay, a little bit of the health and safety now, the multi-layered approach, and this is applicable for the students on campus. First of all, we have this COVID-19 safety plan. So it's taking a lot of the things that we had in the return to school plan, and we're putting all that in the COVID-19 safety plan. It's composed of the return to school plan for students. It's also composed of the return to work plan for a lot of the faculty and staff, including myself, all of us coming back on campus. So it basically incorporates various actions that we have to put in place to adhere to safety protocol for staff and students. I want to just say something at this point. There is this new body of knowledge that we have and best practices that all together compose what is called the standard of care. There is a new standard of care of what is expected from schools actually, but other places to safely reopen. This standard of care is very, very important for us from an ethical standpoint, but also from a health and safety standpoint. So we are really implementing best practices. And this is a little bit of what you're looking at, what's missing in other areas of the country where you have places reopening, not going about this standard of care, and then you see problems happening. So in order to facilitate the implementation of this plan, we have assigned new tasks and responsibilities to existing staff members having new roles. First of all, we created a COVID-19 Safety Committee. My next slide will show what this committee is and who's part of it. Then we've created two important roles. First of all, the COVID-19 Safety Coordinator. That's going to be Alfonso de la Torre, our facilities manager. He has intimate knowledge of all the health and safety practices that we've put in place. He has intimate knowledge of campus modifications that we've done. And so he knows very well the community and the campuses, etc. He's a very organized person. We're in very good hands. And then we have our EB's own contact tracer. It's going to be Sarah Nicholas. I'm sure all of you know Sarah. She's the lower school secretary. She's also working at the health office. She's has also intimate knowledge of the database and all the students and families. So she's able to do contact tracing for us. Then we created leadership campus greeters. It's going to be a lot of us in the morning to make sure that the screening is done properly, that we can answer parents if they have questions, that we can help faculty and staff, that we could welcome the students and answer questions from students if they have questions. We've created the screeners. So there will be daily screening, and we'll have different entry points, and we'll have people posted at all these entry points to screen for symptoms and do the temperature checks. We were going to ask, though, all of you families to do self-screening at home, but we will check the self-screening through an app. I'll explain that in a second. We'll have student runners, so there will be some of our colleagues taking the students and bringing them to the classrooms, and then we'll have COVID-19 responders. So some of us on campus tasked to respond to possible incidents and things we have to look into. This committee, the COVID-19 committee, can be reached at covidsafety@eb.org. So talking about the COVID-19 Safety Committee, we'll have the COVID-19 Safety Coordinator, Alfonso. I'll be part of this committee. Antoine Portales, Director of Business and Finance, will be part of this committee. Cecile Gregoriades, our Communications Director, is part of this committee. All of our division heads, so Richard Lyons, Sébastien Robert, Magali Noth, they are part of this committee. Mirza Koppelman, Director of Enrichment, is part of this committee. Sarah Nicholas, EB's contact tracer, is part of this committee, and someone from the HR office, Rebecca Byers, our HR consultant, is also part of this safety committee. Those are the roles and responsibilities that you have listed here: oversee of our safety procedures, response to incidents, monitor the epidemiologic situation, adjust the pandemic response plan or COVID-19 safety plan, modify protocol as needed. We're learning almost every day, and we have a lot of protocols being fine-tuned at the moment. So we do a lot of monitoring and a lot of fine-tuning of the protocols, and then establishing contact with public health authorities, and then do contact tracing and community information, community communication as well. Okay, a little bit about the screening and testing. I know it's a matter that interests many of you. So all faculty and staff will receive initial COVID-19 testing before the first day of school. It will be happening next week. And we will adhere to ongoing testing at a minimum of once monthly. So if you have read the guidance from the state, this July 17th guidance, they're asking schools to actually test every other month. So they're asking schools to test 25% of faculty and staff every other week. So 25, 25, 25, 25. In 2 months, you have done every one. So we're going to do monthly. We are actually finalizing a contract with a private provider in order to do that, to make sure that we can ensure that the test will not be backlogged, and then we'll have reasonable turnaround time. So we'll have Kaila. Kaila is a company that will organize the testing monthly for faculty and staff, and Kaila will also organize the screening daily for our employees. So all of that will be integrated. Then for the students, we'll have self-screening. We'll be asking you families to do the self-screening, daily symptom screening, as well as temperature screening at home through Ruvna. Ruvna, the beauty of it is that it's integrated with Blackboard, which is our database and student learning management system. So everyone going on campus at any given point, faculty, staff, students, essential visitors, will go through symptom screening check and temp check. There will be various stations. You will have more information about that through your division heads and during town halls and specific communications. Any individuals exhibiting symptoms will not be permitted on site. So we'll be pretty strict on these. My guess is that at this point, we are going to catch a lot of COVID-like symptoms that are not, it's not COVID, but COVID-like symptoms are shared with other diseases such cold, flu, a cough, etc. So we're going to catch a lot of that. And we are going to be sending home students who don't have COVID and have something else. So that it's something to accept, I think. It's something to recognize and something to accept. But that means requiring a little bit of fluidity between on-campus and at-home learning, and potentially additional testing as well, and monitoring symptoms. Some of the campus's improvement as well. I might not go over the whole list. I have 3 slides about that, but I know that some of you are very interested in this, so I wanted to provide you with the information so you can look at it, and I'll just underline a few things here. We have 3 categories. This is the first one. This is the physical distancing upgrades. So first of all, social distancing, physical distancing in all classrooms. So all classroom desks are 3 to 6 feet apart, depending on the room. So most likely 3 to 5, and in some rooms we can do the 6. We're using floor markers and spacing. We have one-way traffic with signage. We have plexiglass to the lobbies, lobby entries on both campuses. And we've designed outdoor play areas for bubble not to mix outside. So they are separated, particularly on the lower school campus, by fencing and cones. So if you drive by the lower school, you can actually see those. We've installed 2 portables, one on the lower school campus, with 2 classrooms, another one on the MS campus. We've added a lot of restrooms, and toilets. And then we have a fire-rated life safety in rooms 5 to 6, 7, and 8. If you were in 2nd grade last year, you remember they're big roomy classrooms, so we're splitting them in 2 so we can have 2 bubbles, but we could have the teacher and the learning facilitator actually communicate very nicely without having the bubbles mixing, because we have this transparent wall, so to speak. And we have COVID isolation rooms on both campuses. This is an important one, health and safety upgrades. So removal of all drinking fountains. And even after COVID, we'll keep that as it is. We've installed instead water bottle fillers. So students can have their water bottle, fill them up, and there's no contact. We've added more outdoor sinks. And this is a very important one for ventilation and also sanitation. We installed UVC sanitation lights to all HVAC units for sanitizing the air in classrooms and common areas. So we'll have not only more ventilation, but we'll have better sanitation of our HVAC units. When we don't have HVAC, we've installed portable UVC air sanitation. We've acquired also material to be able to sanitize surfaces and disinfectant, and we have a lot of PPE, 1 year's worth of PPE equipment for faculty and staff. We have a lot of masks, we have a lot of gowns, etc., gloves, and then hand sanitizers, hand soap, etc. And then tech upgrades, because we have a model, you know the model, we've talked about it, that we have the model with the bubbles, the stable groupings. That means that students will be zooming in some classrooms with the educators that are not their homeroom teachers that are staying in the bubble. So we have installed televisions to facilitate this digital instruction, even if we're on campus. So I want to transition now to academic programs and show you what it looks like, both for actually remote learning and also on-site learning. So for the preschool, we'll go mostly to the on-site learning. That's what's happening. I don't know, Cécile, si tu peux peut-être muter.
Yes, I just did.
And then for the other divisions, I'll give you an overview of both the remote learning programs and then the on-site programs. So you have an idea of when we transition on campus, what it's going to look like. First, I'd like to start with the calendar. The calendar is pretty much the same, so you don't have to worry too much about any changes or things that are not looking exactly the same. But I want to just get your attention on 2 dates only. This is this one, the onboarding week. So usually every year we have a meet the teacher or welcome day on campus. We are going to have that this year as well. It will look different, and it will be the start of what we call onboarding week. So it's starting actually August 27th, which is the Thursday, August 27th. It's the beginning of the onboarding week. which is a little bit of a meet the teacher. So we'll have staggered schedule, small cohorts, bubbles can come on campus, meet their teachers, and depending if they're online or on site, they might grab material. We might have another moment, maybe the 28th, where you're able to pick up devices, etc. But onboarding week is starting this week. Then the first day of school is really August 31st. There is no change here. So that's a date that I'm sure it's is on your radar. But there is a change here, the in-service day. We've actually moved the in-service day earlier. And one of the reasons is that for the students, when they go with this distance learning, we know that the pace is a little different. So we won't have 3 days weekend between the first day of school and the October break. So we'll have 2 3 days weekend. The first one will be Labor Day on September 7th. And the second one will be the in-service day. It will be no school for the students, and it will be Monday, September 28th. So we'll have 2 nice 3 days weekend to have a nice space to lead us to the fall break, which will be October 19 to 23. Then the parent-teacher conferences, online distance conferences will be November 11th. We might have another flow to 2 more days. We'll let you know about that, but you can mark your calendar for November 11th. And then you have the Thanksgiving break, of course, not changing. So here's what you need to know about the calendar. The onboarding will be a little different this year, and it will start on the 27th, and we'll have another flow the week of the 31st. So the first day of school, which is the 31st, will be a different week. We'll have students, even if they are doing distance learning, will come on campus also once or twice a week to create this connection, to see their friends, see their teachers, start those relationships, really discuss what they like and what they would like to do this year, etc. So really this meet and greet aspect that is so important in education, where we need to really focus on relationships. So that even more this year. And we will do the same also for the preschool ones. If you are on a distance learning format, students will also have the opportunity to have some equipment and do some training. So it will be that onboarding week starting on the 27th. And then we'll start some assessments. There is a possibility under the current shelter in place or guidance for us to have students coming one by one on campus to do bilateral work with educators, or to do assessments or things like this. And also to do small social gatherings, following the guidelines that we have had for 8th grade graduation last year. So small groups coming on campus. So we'll use that throughout the school year to have students on campus once a week, etc. Now, the onboarding specifically about the preschool will be preschool the first week, the week of August 31st, they will be at the school all mornings. And then by grade level, by reverse age, we will be adding afternoons. But mostly the first week will be mornings only. One of the reasons is that we want to make sure that the students are really comfortable with the new ways of how things work. They understand the drop-off. They can start those connections with their students and their peers. They can start the connections with their teachers. They can also be more used to the wearing of masks, which is something that is really strongly recommended. So we will ask the students to wear a mask in the preschool, so they could get used to being at the school, and it will be a smoother back to school for them. And we're thinking of having onboarding for the kindergarten in the afternoon. So the preschoolers, the TPS, PS, and MS will be in the morning, and then the kindergarten students will be in the afternoon. Magali will share information about that very soon. Okay, more about the practicality of studying on campus for preschool now. You know that we follow this very important concept of having stable groupings and smaller groups than usual. So instead of having a class of 15 to 20 to 25, we're having bubbles or pods of 10 students or less. So we're going to have that for the whole preschool. Will be groups of 10s with 2 to 3 adults per learning pod. So we're creating this almost family unit or submarine. I've used the term last quarter. So we're creating this bubble that are not having contact with other students, so very small groups. The specialists will actually zoom in, as well as the English teachers, they will be zooming, and the reason is that they're in contact with several bubbles. So we want to limit the number of people that the students have interactions with. Onboarding the first week every morning with increasing time over the week. And then the safety protocols, you know them. It's basically how we apply that to the preschool. So different entry point, one-way traffic, a lot of hand watching, individual tables are going to be placed 6 feet apart, 3 to 6 feet apart, and then masking, etc. Now the kindergarten hybrid instruction, we need to finalize details on this, and we're waiting on the county and the licensing to give us the details. We're trying to license more space so we can have more space, so we can have more students at the same time. But basically, principle is the same. It's a balance of face-to-face and online teaching. So that's the hybrid into a very cohesive experience. The pods of 12 students or less with 2 to 3 adults, very important. The English teachers at this point can either Zoom in or be in person, because the English teachers will be seeing not as many adults as in the preschool. The specialists, same, in person or Zoom in, and many outdoors activities also for the preschool. We know that being outdoor is good, so we'll have them outdoor as much as possible. Every afternoon for the first 2 weeks, that's your onboarding, and then same safety protocol. For the lower school, distance learning first, because that's our working scenario at this point. We've kept what worked well in the last quarter, and we've changed what we could do better. So it's basically an enhanced model of distance learning for the lower school. We'll have this balance of live instruction and independent work. So we'll have still independent work, but really engaging work. That's a very important thing to do. We've seen that small group instruction was very successful, very relevant for students. We'll keep that. That's a very important thing. There is a lot of things happening here from a social and learning standpoint. We'll keep the Wednesday as being dedicated to enrichment for lower elementary, and we'll have specialist teachers still offer live instruction. We are really working on engagement strategies, being at the core of instruction, whether for small group instruction, but also independent work and project-based learning. So we're adding more project-based learning. And we're really looking into the support in French and English, the one-on-one support for our students. We'll have a specific onboarding in the afternoon, and they will come on campus. We'll be outside, small groups, the bubbles, social gathering, one teacher, physical distancing and mask, basically the guidelines we've used for graduation. And then you have here the ecosystem, the digital ecosystem we'll be using for lower school. We'll still be using Zoom to have the live and synchronous instruction, but we'll use the breakout rooms more. And the reason is that we'll have more of a seamless instruction experience for the students and also for the parents, less manipulation for students and parents. We'll keep our enrichment programs Learn, reading A to Z. CISO will be the learning management system that you know, and we'll use more enrichment programs and fun programs to engage students. The on-campus will look a little bit alike like the preschool. Will have different schedules depending on the pods. So each pod will have a schedule and a specific entry point. And each grade level will be part of a cohort of A, B, C, and D when it comes to schedule. So we'll have different bubbles of also limited to 10 to 12 students. 2 to 3 adults only per learning bubbles or learning pod. 1 English teacher dedicated per grade level. The safety protocol is still the same, one-way traffic, desks are apart, students and teachers will wear masks, different entry points, etc. And we'll have the specials either zooming in, for some of them being outside when we could do it, being outside is really great for students. The middle school now. The middle school, most of you know the model, except if you're an incoming 6th grader. We'll keep a model that was very successful, a lot of live teacher instruction, where we kept up nicely with the core curriculum. So we'll have around 75% of live teacher instruction. We'll change the schedule to have more of a block schedule, so we will not be mimicking the regular schedule with the 15 minutes period. So we'll have longer period. We'll have also more independent study. We'll have a block every afternoon from 2:15 to 3:20 of independent study. And we'll have math 4 times a week, French and English 3 times a week, so more of a block schedule. And then additional independent study, SEL on Wednesday, and opportunities for cohort interaction on campus once a week. This principle that I've talked about following graduation guidelines. Here's the digital ecosystem. Not many changes here. Still Google Classrooms, the G Suite as the learning management system, Zoom for live instruction, the breakout rooms also used, and variety of online tools to make it fun and engaging for students. When students come back on campus for the middle school, we'll have stable cohorts still of 10 to 11 students. So basically the classes are pretty much split into two, more or less. So no more than 11 students. And half the students will receive direct teacher instruction, while the other half will be following live under the supervision of a learning support staff. So that will be a very fluid model. 5 classes a day, you have the schedule here, supervised independent study, whole PE will be outside, still SEL on Wednesday, and we'll have the wide lens cameras to facilitate this remote instruction. The safety measures are slightly different because we have what we call the master schedule that we use in secondary. So it's not going to be a bubble cohort, it's going to be a stable cohort. They will stay in their own room, and we're going to minimize the number of teachers that are in contact with those cohorts. It will be strict social distancing and physical distancing as well. We've added extra bathroom as well. So each cohort will have its assigned bathroom, the same for the lower school. The home learning, the one-to-one Chromebook program will be for the students, and they will also have access to office hours, and they will have all the assignments posted on Google Classroom. The home learning, I'm going to go back because I think this slide didn't have access to it yet. There you go. So home learning for PS and LS. So just a second to talk about home learning. Home learning is a program that we've put in place to recognize that some families may have major concerns with the students coming back on campus because of COVID-19, most likely because there is a pre-existing condition. Either the student has the pre-existing health condition or someone in the family. And so we have a programmatic solution for that, which is whenever students are welcome back on campus, students and parents can transition to home learning. So it's a specific program that is designed for students to be opting out of the on-campus model. So we have a specific team for the home learning. Maggie Schoen, she's the pedagogical coordinator in the school. She has been tasked with actually coordinating the home learning department. And we're assigning faculty to the home learning department. And each most likely will have one faculty for the preschool, one faculty for the lower school. And they will be assigned with the task of doing Zoom meetings daily with the students, organizing the workload on CISO. So they will be coordinating with the homeroom teacher, creating the workload on CISO, liaising with the students as well, adapting the curriculum to provide a great experience for students. And also the students will have the opportunity to connect with the classroom, for instance, in the morning, so they can keep track with what's happening in the group, and they could still have these social digital connections, etc. Now, this does not apply when the lower school, for instance, is doing distance learning. We don't need to do the home learning. So when if there are parents on this Zoom right now that said, I want to do the home learning, but actually the lower school is doing the distance learning, the elementary school is doing the distance learning, you're not going to be doing the home learning, you're going to be doing the distance learning like the other students. And when the lower school students are coming back on campus, you'll transition to home learning. And same thing for the middle school here. All students right now for the middle school are doing the distance learning. So the home learning, it's here for your own information, but we're not putting that in place right now. Okay, I want to finish with the DEI and anti-racism education. I know it's not necessarily the topic of the call today, but I know it's an important matter for all of us, and it's important to many members of the communities. And we've said that we are committed to this work. We're committed to becoming an anti-racist institution, having anti-racist policies and instructional models. So I wanted to share with you that this is still very important. It's very dear to our hearts. And we've started doing initiatives with the PA, with a group of faculty and staff here at the school over the spring and the summer. We have had workshops for parents. We've had workshops for our own educators. The PA conducted workshops. We have had the portraits and the exhibition over the summer. We've invited the whole community to read a book, How to Be an Anti-Racist by Kendi. And so if you have not done it, I encourage you to do it. We'll be doing the workshops within the next 2 to 3 weeks. But this is coming. So we'll be discussing this book as a team with the faculty and staff, and we hope that you can join us to discuss it also as a community. But some of those are the things that you might not know, actually. We're very close to finalizing a partnership with DEI specialist Dr. Derek Gay. He is based in Chicago, but he's very well known when it comes to anti-racism education, inclusion, and equity. And so we would like to work with him for 2 years. The conversation actually started before the crisis, so to speak, in the spring with the tragic death of George Floyd and Breonna Taylor, etc. But we started the work before, but it's more relevant than ever. So we're glad to have continued to speak with Dr. Gay. So we'll try to work with him for 2 years, including trainings and workshops for all constituents over 2 years, creation of a DEI committee in the fall, continue to work with the great work of the PA and the diversity chair in the PA, and Carla Maya, our diversity coordinator in the school. And in the small group, we have a small group of very active faculty and staff doing things. One of the things that we will be doing is reassessing the curriculum to examine for bias and lack of inclusion. And Richard wanted me to share some specific things also done at the middle school, actually this very back to school. Anti-racist theme SEL lessons every Wednesday, during celebrations, and formation of affinity groups for students of colors. So that will be hopefully a very important and meaningful one for our students. Then I will finish by sharing with you this important dates. So we'll have town halls next week with the division heads. So those are meetings you don't want to miss. I really encourage you to attend those meetings. There will be a lot of practical information. First one is on Monday, this Monday, the 17th, 9:30 to 10:30 for preschool, so PS, petite section, moyenne section, and TK, grade 3, 4, and 5. You will receive the information to log in very soon. Monday, August 17th as well, and 1:30 p.m. for the TPS, or two petite section. The 17th, 3:30, 4:30 for K, grade 1, grade 2, and the 17th at 4:30, 5:30 for the middle school. And then Wednesday, the 26th, 3:30 for preschool and kindergarten. It's a division town hall. The 26th for the lower school with Sebastian at 4:30, and then the 26th at 5:30 with Richard for the middle school.